It'd been suffering under the misguided illusion that the purpose of main publishers like Penguin Random House was to sell and promote fine writing. A colleague's forwarded email has set me straight. Sent to a literary agent. Presumably this letter was also fired off to the agents of the entire Penguin Random House stable. The email cites the publisher's new company-wide goal, for both our new hires and the authors we acquire to reflect UK society by 2025. Gotta love that shouty boldface. This means we want our authors and new colleagues to reflect the UK population, taking into account ethnicity, gender, duality, social mobility and disability. The email proudly proclaims that the company has removed the need for a university degree from nearly all our jobs, which, if my manuscript were being copy-edited and proofread by folks whose university-educated predecessors already exhibited horrifyingly weak grammar and punctuation, I would find alarming. The accompanying questionnaire for PRH authors is by turns fascinating, comical and depressing. Gender and ethnicity questions provide the coy prefer not to say option, ensuring that being female or Japanese can remain your deep dark secret. As the old chocolate or vanilla S have multiplied into Baskin-Robbins, responders to how would you define your gender may prefer to use my own term. In the pull-down menu under how would you define your UAL orientation, Buy and Bill are listed as two completely different answers. What do these publishing worthies imagine by means? Not subsumed by that mere gender inquiry. Out of only 10 questions, do you identify as trans merits a whole separate query, for 0.1% of the population. Thus with a staff of about 2,000, PRH will need to hire exactly 2. You can self-classify as disabled, and 3 sequential questions obviously hope to elicit that you've been as badly educated as humanly possible. And check out the ethnicity pull-down. Asian or Asian British may specify Indian, Bangladeshi, Chinese, or Pakistan. The correct adjectival form of the latter nationality seems to be mysteriously unprintable. Black or Black British may identify as Caribbean or African. Mixed allows for the options white and black African, white and black Caribbean, and white and Asian, but any other combo is merely mixed, other. As for us, there's white, British, white, Irish, and white, Gypsy or Irish traveller, but the rest can only tick white, other. Let's unpack the pull-down. If your office is chocker with Italians, Greeks, Spaniards, Germans, Danes, Finns, Bosnians, Hungarians, Czechs, Russians, Americans, Canadians, Australians, Kiwis, Argentines, Guatemalans, Mexicans, Romanians who aren't travelers and South African Jews, I could go on, together speaking dozens of languages and bringing to their workplace a richly various historical and cultural legacy, the entire workforce could be categorized as white, other. Your office is not diverse. I see 2 issues here. First, diversity, both the word and the concept, has crimped. It serves a strict, narrow agenda that has little or nothing to do with the productive dynamism of living and working alongside people with widely different upbringings and beliefs. Only particular and, if you will, privileged backgrounds count. Which is why Apple's African-American diversities are, Denise Young-Smith, got hammered last October after submitting, there can be 12 white, blue-eyed, blonde men in a room and they're going to be diverse too because they're going to bring a different life experience and life perspective to the conversation. She hadn't bowed to the newly sled definition of the word, which has now been effectively removed from the language as a general-purpose noun. Second, dazzled by this very highest of social goods, many of our institutions have ceased to understand what they are for. Drunk on virtue, Penguin Random House no longer regards the company's raison d'etre as the acquisition and dissemination of good books. Rather, the organization aims to mirror the percentages of minorities in the UK population with statistical precision. Thus from now until 2025, literary excellence will be secondary to ticking all those ethnicity, gender, disability, UAL preference and crap education boxes. We can safely infer from that email that if an agent submits a manuscript written by a gay transgender Caribbean who dropped out of school at 7 and powers around town on a mobility scooter, it will be published, whether or not said manuscript is an incoherent, tedious, meandering and insensible pile of mixed paper recycling. Good luck with that business model. Publishers may eschew standards, but readers will still have some. In the news last week, we find the ultimate example of this fatal confusion over what is your actual job. Will Norman, London's Walking and Cycling Commissioner, bemoaned the fact that too many cyclists in the city are white, male and middle class. The real challenge for London cycling, he declared, is diversity. As opposed to building more cycle lanes for everybody, or fixing potholes lethal to everybody's wheel rims, Norman regards his principal function as increasing black and minority ethnic ridership. He'll be fascinated how he accomplishes this noble mission. Will he resort to stereotypes, broadcasting gangster rap from lampposts alongside cycling superhighways, where pop-up snack stands hand out free chapatis for a cycling commissioner to define his primary remit as diversity is no less ludicrous than for Transport for London to turn a blind eye to the chronic tailbacks along the embankment, just so long as the requisite number of Koreans is stuck in them. With rare guts, the softball conservative New York Times columnist David Brooks recently decried the misplaced idolization of diversity. Although a laudable penultimate aim, he wrote, diversity is a midpoint, not an endpoint. An organization has to be diverse so that different perspectives can serve some end. Diversity for its own sake, without a common telos, is infinitely centrifugal and leads to social fragmentation. Just as Brooks sees diversity as no substitute for a common national purpose in the U.S., private and public institutions alike need to keep their eyes on the prize: good books. Safe cycling. For everybody.